The internet is abuzz about the Netflix docuseries Tiger King. The true crime series follows the story of Joe Exotic, an eccentric gay man who owns a big cat zoo. The series ends with Joe Exotic being arrested for hiring a hitman to kill his enemy, leaving audiences to wonder whether he actually committed the crime or if he was set up. But production ended for Tiger King before 2020, and after its widely popular release on Netflix, the story has continued to develop. In this video, we're going to look at everything that's happened that's not documented in the Netflix series. Facts First presents the untold ending of Tiger King Joe Exotic. Before we get into the story, though, make sure to hit that subscribe button and click the notification bell. You don't want to miss a single Facts First video. For those who have not seen the series yet, Tiger King follows Joe Exotic and other bizarre characters in the world of big cats. The project was filmed over a 5-year period, and it was initially started to document the issues of people privately owning big cats such as lions, tigers, and leopards. As an advocate for animal conservancy, director Eric Goode wanted to focus on how life in captivity affects these animals. But then he was introduced to the very interesting personalities of the big cat subculture. The story mainly follows Joe Exotic, the owner of an exotic animal zoo in Oklahoma that features over 200 tigers. Here, he lives and works with 2 husbands and a tight-knit, dedicated staff. The story also features Bhagavan Doc Antle, who runs a similar exotic animal zoo in South Carolina. Both of these zoos charge people hundreds of dollars to experience close encounters with big cats and other exotic animals. Guests are able to pet cubs, take photos with full-grown tigers, and more. The other major character of the story is Carole Baskin, who operates Big Cat Rescue in Florida. Carole believes that no one should be able to privately own big cats. Joe and Carole were enemies because Carole was trying to shut down the private ownership of big cats, which would ruin Joe's business and life's passion. She felt that they were not meant to live in captivity. However, Joe and other big cat owners note that there's a lot of hypocrisy in Carole's position. For example, the Big Cat Rescue keeps its tigers in smaller cages than both Joe and Doc have on their properties. They claim Carole exploits the big cats just as much as anyone else and even has a history of breeding her tigers in captivity. And we can't overlook the fact that many people now believe Carole killed her husband and fed him to her tigers to get rid of the evidence. To this day, no one knows the exact cause of her husband's disappearance, though. That further shrouds Carole in suspicion, which Joe was never shy about discussing in his online videos. Joe and Carole feuded for years, constantly targeting each other in online posts and videos. Joe even went so far as to destroy mannequins in her likeness and making direct threats. That's why in 2018, Joe Exotic's believed to have hired a hitman to kill Carole Baskin. He was arrested and sentenced to 22 years for murder for hire and animal abuse. The Tiger King series ends with Joe Exotic in jail and his exotic animal zoo is left in the hands of the new owner, Jeff Lowe. But the story doesn't end here. Like other true crime docuseries, Tiger King has triggered a huge response among audiences. Despite Joe Exotic's charges, people are flocking to his support and even praising him for his resilience. Although he is still currently in jail, the directors have been able to speak with him and hear his response to the Netflix series. According to directors, Joe has been ecstatic about the success of the show. He's thrilled to get love from so many people, and apparently he receives a lot of fan mail and even gets sexy pictures from women, even though he is openly gay. The directors also say that serving time has changed Joe's perspective. Now, knowing what it's like to live in a cage, he has become apologetic about keeping animals and realizes his mistakes. Still, Joe Exotic insists that he was framed for hiring a hitman to kill Carole Baskin. Inspired by the success of the docuseries, he recently filed a $94 million lawsuit. In the suit, he wants $74 million for the loss of personal property, 18 years of research, and over 200 tigers. In addition, he wants another $20 million for false arrest and imprisonment. As if that wasn't enough, he's also asking President Trump for a presidential pardon. Even if Joe gets all he's asking for, he's still got a score to settle. That's because he's also accused the man who took over his zoo, Jeff Lowe, of plotting against him to steal his entire zoo. So the wild tale of Joe Exotic continues. But Joe isn't the only person who's been affected by the release of Tiger King. Carole Baskin also had much to say about the series as she played a prominent role in the story. She released a lengthy blog post describing her thoughts. Of course, Carole Baskin continues to insist that she had nothing to do with her husband's disappearance. Even though the docuseries had many sources that described her as dangerous and suspicious, she claims that they were not credible. Carole also claims the directors misled her during production. She said they described the film as Blackfish but for big cats. Blackfish was a documentary that exposed SeaWorld for their poor treatment of killer whales. Well, she was eager to help expose the abuse of big cats, but the story ended up taking a different turn. Carole's been vocal in her disapproval of Tiger King, but for her, life goes on as usual. Today, she continues operating Big Cat Rescue with her husband Howard. Her goal is still to end the private ownership of big cats. John Finlay, one of Joe Exotic's ex-husbands, had a similar complaint with the directors. He claimed that the directors were selective in what they included in the documentary. For starters, the only footage of Finlay in the documentary shows him missing many teeth. He took to Facebook to tell fans that he actually has his teeth fixed. He says that the directors had footage of this, but they chose not to include it to help ratings. Although John Finlay was married to Joe Exotic for some years, it turns out he wasn't actually gay. Apparently, he'd been sleeping with multiple women at the zoo for years, even impregnating one. After an ugly separation with Joe Exotic in 2014, Finlay left the zoo and is no longer on good terms with Joe. Today, he works as a welder. Tiger King still holds the #1 spot for most watched on Netflix, even 1 week after its debut. Considering how much people have come to love and hate the characters, it probably won't be the last we hear from these dynamic individuals. In fact, the directors mentioned that they continued filming even after the show was finished, saying it'd be interesting to put that footage out there in some way. Until then, you can look forward to the newly announced Joe Exotic limited television series. SNL alum Kate McKinnon is set to play Carole Baskin, but the remaining cast is still undetermined. Who would you like to see play Joe Exotic in the series? Leave us a comment and let us know. And don't forget to subscribe to Facts Verse for more videos.